How are you guys doing? This is Ayesha. I'm a former Fulbrighter. I was just looking outside my window. So I'm based out of Dubai. It's very lovely weather here. It's 4 p.m. my time, and I'm super, super excited to be having and conducting this session with you guys. I'll start with an introduction of myself. I always like doing that because you need to know who is basically talking to you. And then we go into the session. A few housekeeping rules. I love questions because I want the session to be engaging. I don't just want to talk. I want you to ask me questions, give me feedback, focus or direct me the way you want the session to go. So, typically the session is for you and for your benefit. I think, firstly, before I go into my introduction, a little bit about myself, I want to really thank Noor. I think what she and the USEFP Education USA, what they're doing is absolutely fantastic. Um, Statement of purpose, particularly, is really, really crucial. It helps differentiate, yes, your grades, your academics, your merit. Um, is important when it comes to, you getting a scholarship and getting admissions. But again, how you brand yourself will not only be important here, but like, generally anywhere in life. So please ask me questions. Thank you to these guys for setting up these sessions for us to connect and for us to see what and how can we create that narrative about your brand and then move forward. Now, before I go into this, as I start my introduction, I want you to, in the chat, start writing out, and I will periodically be going over the questions and the comments on the chat. Tell me more. Are you guys applying for masters, for PhD? Where are you guys applying for? So I can make the session a little bit more constructive towards that particular segment. So please get in the chat, start writing, and I'll, start with my introductions in the meanwhile. All right, a little bit on the agenda before we go into the introductions. So I will talk about myself, then we'll go about why do we think statement of purpose is important, how do we write it with the different kinds of statement of purpose, and the formal requirements, strategies of writing, and then a few examples which I feel are really, really important. Guys, I'm waiting for the chat. Let me know PhD, masters, what are we going forward for? Okay, moving on. I'm just keeping my camera off. Let me know if you want it to be on. But let's move into the introduction. All right, so this is me. You see 3 pictures of me there. The one in purple, as you can probably guess, this is from my graduation from Northwestern, where I went on a Fulbright scholarship. The one on the right with that cake is one of the creations I did. I really enjoy baking. So that is from my last final creation for my exam to get my certification as a PME qualified cake designer. And the one on the left, that's in a stadium. I think I was watching probably the India-Pakistan match here in Dubai. So, and we won. So I guess the smile says it all. I've spent about 5 years post Fulbright across Middle East, UK, and the SSA region. I was based out of Johannesburg for a bit, with tech, where I have established my career for the last, I don't know, maybe 8, 9, 10 years. It's been a long, long time. All right, let's go in. I love the session. I love how everyone is super engaging. No, IELTS is not required for the master degrees in the US. Aiming for a PhD, master's, PhD, master's, PhD. All right, amazing. That's what I assumed. I thought there would be a nice mix between master's and PhD. And that is what we see. All right, fantastic. Let's go ahead. How important is the statement of purpose, whether it's a PhD program or it's a master's program? How important do you guys think it is? Give me your, before I go into that, I want to see how important do you think the statement of purpose is? Is it important at all? Or is it just like an essay that you're submitting? I'm going to pause for 10 seconds and see who can respond to me on this before I get into my version of this. It's really important. It's like a pitch. All right. All right. Just give me like a little bit more. So it is important. We've established it. Why do you think it's important? What do you think is it's much needed? All right. Keep the answers coming. Let me go on to why is this massively important? Now, basically, when you go and write your statement of purpose, usually, and this is again, 80-90% of the people who are going for masters or PhD are all super qualified individuals, right? These individuals have experience, they have, potentially decent grades, know what to do in life, are very ambitious for them to think about, that next stage in their education journey. So you're already competing with the creme de la creme. So when you're doing that, you need to stand out. When you talk about the statement of purpose, there are two parts to this now. Specifically for the Fulbright scholarship, you have your research objectives, your personal statements. You have to differentiate between the two. One is more focused on your academic ambitions. So that is going to have your work experience, the courses you enjoy, what you want to do in the future. And of course, with Fulbright, there's another angle. What are you going to do when you come back? And then the personal statement is what is unique. Now, for instance, I'm going to go in the chat, Zainab or Hajra or Salman. What is unique about you? Like what differentiates Hajra from a Zainab or Zainab from a Salman? So these are things which are very, very important. It can be anything. It could be community service. It could be a hobby that you have. Maybe someone likes to paint. Maybe someone likes to bake. What is that unique quality about you that needs to shine? All right, let's look at a few of the responses in the chat. Great. It's all about why you guys think it's important. I changed my career from design to social work. Yes, career change can be, I've done that as well. I was an accounting and finance major for my undergrad, and then I went into hardcore digital marketing, MBA on that front. So that is something that you can do. The field can change as well. So my field essentially changed from accounting and finance, moving into more management. All right. When should you start thinking about writing the statement of purpose? Now, and this is very, very key because a lot of students that reach out to me leave this to the very end. So they're like, okay, the scores are done, the GRE is done, the application is spelled. Now let's put something together. This is not a recommended practice. I want you to put as much thought as you can, plan it. Both of the statements need to be thought of. You need to have a strategy in place, a paragraph by paragraph. I know I get questions, how many paragraphs should we have? I do have a structure. I typically recommend 5 paragraphs, which are divided into, the introduction is very, very key. Then, of course, so if there's a structure, it's a foolproof plan. You can obviously experiment to take it to the next level, but the structure it's sort of like a safe bet. In that, I recommend a start and an end. The end needs to connect everything you've written together, and the middle 3 paragraphs need to have 3 points that you want to stress. So let's take an example of a statement of purpose. Let's say I'm writing one for myself. I want to differentiate, myself from the rest of the crowd. So I'll start with the intro. Now, I'm not talking about the specific, in this case, the research objectives, where I'm talking about what I want to achieve specifically in terms of my career. I've already done that, and we can talk a little bit about how that's done as well. But if I'm writing a personal statement, in a personal statement, I will say, okay, Ayesha needs to highlight 3 things. So now I want to keep it very well balanced. I'm like, okay, maybe I want to highlight what is that one quality that I want to highlight, right? Now, I want to maybe highlight my passion for baking and now how I have used that for community development. Now, I have a statement. I'm not going to add 3 different things, but I have that. I will structure that in a way where I'll say, okay, in the first paragraph, I'll talk about how I developed this passion, how I went into education of this, getting courses, getting certification. Then I thought, okay, I need the community to benefit. So I did 2 angles there. One of the angle was how can I materially use my skill, like my baking skills, to maybe cook food for, the less fortunate, let's say, or for my community, for my family, for my friends. The next angle is I realize that this is a talent that I have and I need to take full potential and full use of this. So I decided to create online courses. Maybe they were pro bono courses. So then I talk about that. Then in the third paragraph, I can talk about the impact. I was able to serve these many members, or these many students were able to benefit from the course. But you see the structure. So there can be other elements as well. Like I can also talk about, yes, and my passion of this led me into discovering new talents that I've never explored, like painting or, and I'm talking about myself. And of course, if I know individually what your strengths are, we can talk about that specifically and build a strategy and build like a statement around it. But there needs to be a lot of thought that is very unique and that is standing out your unique self from the rest of the masses who are going to be sending in their application. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the research objective part. Now, when you're talking about what you want to achieve, or let's say what you want to do in terms of, your career objectives, I always say that that's actually an easier one. You know why that's easy? Because you have three elements: your past, your present, your future. Your past is, what you've done, your education, your work experience. Your present is essentially, sorry, excuse me, your past is what you've done. Your present is essentially now all that experience. Where has it led you right now? What are you doing right now? What is your, contribution right now in terms of work, in terms of your research, in terms of, your academic growth, and then future. And then in the future, you say, okay, I want to take this course. And with the Fulbright, there's always an angle of how do you tie it back to when you come back to the country and benefit it. So, it's sort of like very structured. I'm going to pause. I'm going to on the chat, see if there are any questions, any comments, etc. So I see Inspiring Women says you're representing your brand that you've built so far. Correct. You need to get about clear purpose of further study. I think it portrays who you are and why should the university choose you. Again, that's Farouk, that's a very, very good question. Why should they choose you? What is the value that you're bringing? So there are two parts to this actually. What is the value that you're bringing to the university? And what is the value of the university to you? So why are you applying to this university? There are thousands of other universities. So if you say, yes, these are the courses that I'm interested in, this is the professor that I want to work with. Specifically in PhD, that can be done very nicely. Even in masters, that can be done, right? Do research on the professors, do research on the programs. Maybe, you're interested, for example, in digital marketing. There's one professor. So for instance, I'll give you my example. Alex Schultz is a very famous professor at Northwestern University. If I'm going there, I would say, okay, these are the books he's written. I'll read the books. This is the research he's done. It shows that you've done your homework and you're not just applying for the sake of applying, right? So that's one element of this. And then what are you bringing to the university? So you have experience in Pakistan, a developing country where you've done X, Y, Z. You would love to share that experience with your international colleagues, get to learn from them. And then you can sort of, circle back and say, everything that I learn academically from my professors, from my peers, I will bring back to Pakistan, and this X, Y, Z, depending on the course, this is how I'm going to use that. All right, back to the chat. Hajra says it's a reflection of our personality. Yes, it is important because it shows why you're applying. Absolutely. Statement of purpose is crucial because it highlights your goals, showcases your unique story, and demonstrates your fit for the program or opportunity. Absolutely spot on. I changed my career from design to social work. All right. Master is data science. Is career change possible for PhD as well? Yes, it is possible. And I know a lot of people who've done that, Ambreen. Alina says, I've done GRE, yet I haven't done this. Can I apply in the intake? And can do GRE in the remaining time. You just have to see the timeline, Alina. What is the GRE cutoff timeline? We'll wait till the end of the session, and Noor can give you the specific timeline for that, but I believe it's going to be next year. Muhammad Zaman says, how much lines of words is better for statement of purpose? So I always say 5 paragraphs. And in terms of the lines of the thing, it's more the content that I'm more worried about. But I would say for Fulbright specifically, a one pager is good. They do give you some guidelines, by the way. And I always say, do not always try to meet that guideline. When I say that, it really matters, and you will see as you progress in your careers, the more effective you are with fewer words, the solid sort of impression it makes. How do we differentiate ourselves from others? Everything that I spoke about on the personal statement front. What is the recommended word count? We talked about that already. On which basis does the US selecting Pakistani students for any university? So it depends on your grades, it depends on your personal statement, it depends on your standardized test results, like for graduate studies, it's your GRE and all of that. And then, of course, there are quotas. I don't want to get into that specifically. But if I were you, how I managed my future education strategy was, once you know what program you want to apply for, you would have a rough idea of the universities, right? You go to those universities and see last year what was the cutoff for GRE. It will give you a benchmark of what score you're targeting, what kind of students enrolled. I would go one level higher, and I would actually try to reach out to students who applied, who are either alumni of that university or who currently enrolled, and reach out to them and get like internal insights. That is always helpful. What should be the main prospects of SOP? I think we briefly spoke about it. Your SOP needs to be, if it's on the research objective piece, it needs to have a well-structured plan, what you've done, what you want to do, and how in the future this will benefit you. On the personal side, it needs to be very much focused on what is that unique point about you. And I'll give you some examples that will, help you understand that. No, please do not take help from ChatGPT. It becomes very obvious. I'll tell you a funny story to lighten the mood a little bit. About 2.5 weeks ago, my niece showed me an essay that she's written she's in her GCSEs. And it was, again, she'd read it, she sort of had ChatGPT write it for her. So within the first 4 lines of the essay, I could tell. So, and I've read a lot of essays, right? Like, so it takes that much time for me to figure out. Now, the people who are sitting on the other side reading your essays, they are much more experienced than me, because this is what they do day in, day out. So please, like, the example is to say, do not take help from ChatGPT. You can take help in terms of the information you want for your field, like you would with Google, but do not ask them to write your essays. And do not ask them to write like 1 or 2 paragraphs and then embed it in your writing. It shows. Which city have more acceptance rate or quota? I wouldn't go that way, Tarima. It's more about what you want to do. I always tell students, I'm going to detract for 5 seconds on another topic, but this is very important, I believe. A lot of students, when they're applying for Fulbright, sometimes they say, okay, these are the programs where I have the maximum chance to get the scholarship, but they would not go for competitive programs that they actually like. Now, the issue then is your end goal is not just the education, right? The end goal is to be able to actually create impact in the communities, to be able to get jobs, to work, to start a business, etc. But if you're not going in a program that you're passionate about, A, you will not do well because you're not passionate about that. B, you could potentially be in a difficult situation to, establish your career. So please always go for programs that you're passionate about and things you actually want to do, and they align with your career objectives. Can we use ChatGPT for grammar correction? Yeah, you can use Grammarly for that, actually. That's very good. How do you suggest going about the university search? Shortlist your program and then, research on what are the best universities. I always say have like three buckets: one top tier, mid tier, and lower tier, and target all of those universities and do your research on that. All right. Great, super engaging session, guys. Keep the questions coming. We'll go back to the deck and talk a little bit more about what are the formal requirements. I have some of these here for the questions. Some applications call for one statement. I already talked about it, while others require responses. There are few questions. These are the ranges officially. 1 to 2 pages. I try to keep it one, but 1.5 to be on the safe side. 2 would be a bit much. I have even told you in terms of the pages, what does that mean? The font and the margins, just so you have a rough idea. You need to read the instructions carefully, specifically when you're writing that for school department. With Fulbright, again, it comes with, instructions. But sometimes, even once you get the Fulbright, when you are applying, or the universities you're applying for, you need to do additional statements, like I had to. So my university, after I won the Fulbright Award, my university had a requirement of 4 essays, and then I had additional interviews as well to be able to secure admission. So there could be additional requirements. In a lot of cases, there aren't, but there could be exceptions. So just make sure you understand those questions and those instructions really, really well. All right, now comes the interesting questions, which is why I was asking you, what is the mix of students, so we can ensure that we target masters and PhD. Now, the strategies that you guys wanted to, or the questions that you are asking me. Select a program, very, very important. The first thing you need to do is decide what program are you going for? What is your field? In that field, what is the specific program? If you're into, let's say, marketing, what do I want to do in marketing? Then you need to research courses, professors, research papers, etc. Again, we talked a little bit about all of these strategies, but I always believe in reiterating. The reiteration helps stick the strategy for this entire selection process of your course and how you want to proceed to eventually lead into your graduate programs. Select universities, connect with alumni, define your uniqueness. We talked about this. This needs to be, once you've done the research, right? You know what you want to do. You have the program. What differentiates you? What's your uniqueness, both academically as well as personally? We all have it. Now I'm going to pause here and, I want to reiterate a point. A lot of students that I help, and, I do pro bono sessions a lot. I'm very passionate about education and about, I believe in equitable opportunities for education. So I spend some time, going over students' statement of purpose and giving them feedback. And a lot of times, and I've done that now with thousands of students, so they would come back and they'd say, oh, but madam, we don't have a uniqueness, or we don't have a hobby, or we don't have. And then, when I would work with them and I would, chat with them, every one of us has something that's unique. It's all about storytelling. So if you are a good storyteller, you will be able to sell your story in a way that is very authentic, in a way that's very unique. So what I tell everyone is, please do not fabricate anything. Be your authentic self and write what is the actual case. Let's go back to see if there are any more questions, and then we go into the essentials. Yes, so Dr. Nika, I can review your SOP at the end of the session. I will share my LinkedIn information a lot. That's the best way to reach out to me. That's my go-to network online. So you can, add me on LinkedIn and send in your SOP. Just being mindful that, it will take a few days for me to get back to you, but I do that. What if we do not have any extracurricular activities? I'm sure there would be something. At some point, you've done some community work or some sport or some hobbies, right? If not, then maybe this is a time for you to start something, because that does differentiate, right? Even for you, Tareem, like, you would see anyone who has a well-rounded personality, we get more attracted by them, right? We want to be friends with them. We want to engage with them. So it's the same with universities. They want people who are very much well-rounded, right? So it shows, for instance, if you do a team sport, it shows you're a team player. If you play like an individual sport, you do debates, it shows you're a leader. So these are subtle ways of showing the qualities that you have. If you're an athlete, it shows you have resilience. So it's very, very important to have some, if you have community work, it shows that you have empathy. All right. Very, very quickly, is it good to humanize AI text or statement? I didn't understand this part, man. I know I will modify and customize what I have unique. If you're saying that if you want to use artificial intelligence to write the statement of purpose, I don't believe I got the question. Please feel free to write your point here again. Can we have the recording of this session? I think so you can. Noor can talk a little bit more about this. Oh, she already did. Well, amazing. She's on top of it. Are publishing research papers important to receive the scholarship? Depends. So, for instance, in my field, not important. It wouldn't have added much value. In your field, you have to see what are the, like I said, you need to step back, you need to see what is required in your field. Are other students doing research? Have other students, published papers? So that's like very, very important. Hajra says, I'm confused whether we have to choose university by ourselves, or I've heard for Fulbright university placement will be done by USEFP. Please provide me with clear answer. So for USEFP specifically, I know that you mention your choice, but the final selection does come from USEFP. But Noor can talk a little bit more about this towards the end of the session. Can you share your statement of purpose with us for understanding? Unfortunately, I cannot. I don't think that is something that USCFP or anyone would appreciate. But having said that, I can always review what you have written and provide you with feedback, because my field is going to be very, very different than yours, right? So it might not also be very beneficial, but I'm happy to guide you as you write your statement of purpose. All right. I hope, Laiba, that answers your question. Guys, keep the questions coming. I'll move into the essentials. All right. What I cannot stress more about and more on is specificity. Now, what is specificity? Specificity means if you understand your field, if you are passionate about your field, it will show. There needs to be so much research on your field that you've done that you exactly understand what out of that you need to mention. But if you just done like on a higher level, 1, 2, 3 universities, one or two professors, you'll just pick and choose whatever you've seen. So you need to be like a master and then choose what specifically you need to point out on. Relevance to the field, very, very important. If you're writing a statement on, let's say your chosen field is, I don't know, AI, and you're writing about fashion, that's not very relevant. So it has to be relevant to the field. Passion, it shows it's very, very natural. So whenever I do these sessions, for instance, sometimes I get, or anything I do, maybe it's, I'm talking about the session. A lot of people are like, we can see the way you conduct the sessions that you're excited about it or you're passionate, because genuinely deep down in the core, I'm doing something that I really enjoy or that I believe in. Which is why when I started the session, I said, always choose profession that you are actually passionate about. You will be surprised how, when you write, how, when you talk in any form of communication, that comes out very naturally. You might not think it does, but to other people, it is very, very obvious. So make sure that you're passionate about what you're writing. Then the last point in this is you need to understand what are the issues in the country, in the city, in the community that you're in. How can you help? Again, with Fulbright, it's very, very important. Even I would say for non-Fulbright, it could add like a very nice element that can put you ahead of other peers. Because if you know what's happening and you connect it well, it shows, okay, this person at this young age has the vision to see, okay, this is the macro level problem. This is the problem in my country. This is the problem in my city. This one is in my community, and my program, my understanding can help. And I can give you examples. I have some examples on the essay that we'll go into. I will quickly have a look at the chat before we move on to the next session, next slide. All right, can we have, okay, we've done that. Then, all right, where can we connect? LinkedIn, Laba, I'll share my details with you towards the end of the session. CGPA matters. I mean, that depends again on your program, right? Like for an art student, a GPA or a lower GPA specifically in maths and some of those other standardized tests would not matter, but maybe for your field, you need to actually tell me, I should be asking this question, is 3.2 GPA okay for your program? So you guys need to do the research. I've done BS in engineering and MBA 2.5 years. Should I target availing admission in PhD or go for, you need to decide that, like, what are you passionate about and what is your ambition for your career? Can you give us an example of the first 2-3 lines? Yes, I will. I will just go into the sessions, into the examples very soon. Would you like to share any template of SOP? So I shared the overall structure. I'll give you a few examples of what not to do and what to do. I'm going to come back to this. Actually, let's go through it. Actually, essential standout. This is the first question. The first point you need to focus on. We talked about it a lot. If you're talking about, or when you're writing, whether research or personal, discuss what influenced you. Was it, it could be your professor, it could be your grandmother, it could be a celebrity that just, it could be a researcher. That could be one thing. Now I'm giving you examples of what you can use. I think a lot of questions that were coming was, how can our statement be, stand out? How can it be different? So these are now those examples. Is there a turning point when you realized you wanted to pursue this path? I could write about, I was an accounting and finance individual, an analyst, and I had a turning point where I was just very much into e-commerce. I loved online shopping that had just started, in Pakistan. It was something that was growing, and suddenly I understood, oh, digital marketing needs to be there. Nobody knew what digital marketing was. There were no programs. That was my turning point. There could be a different one for all of us, right? Depending on our program, our life circumstances, etc. Is there particular research, someone who inspired? I talked about it. Was it a professor? Was it a book? What is that inspiration for you? Convey your understanding of the subject matter. That's key. And if you actually genuinely have it, it will reflect in your writing. Explain how all of these experiences are related to your current interests. All right. Now, what is again important after this slide? I'm going to go back to the questions. Guys, keep the questions coming, engage. I'm loving the energy in the session today. All right. When you're writing your statement, there are few things. So, it's your culture, ethnicity, belief, what do you think about, where you're coming from. It is very important, but the reason I have this slide here is that I wanted to mention something. I have also been on the panel of Fulbright for selecting, reading the SOPs and in the selection committee. I have seen a trend where a lot of individuals would talk about, oh, we're from, I'm the first person in my family who got educated, or, I'm coming from outskirts and, I've had a very difficult childhood. No, all of that is, 95% of a country is in that situation. It doesn't stand out. Now, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. I'm saying I understand it. That is your authentic truth. That is your story. I appreciate it. But what I want to say is that if you want to go down that path, I would not recommend it, because as someone who's been in the jury, we read that a lot. It's not differentiating, but because it is your statement of purpose at the end of the day, right? If you want to go down that path and you've decided, then use that story as something very, very positive. It should demonstrate resilience without so much so as writing it down in the entire story. It should talk about optimism. It should talk about something positive. I read a few essays recently, I think a couple of weeks ago, that I was working on for someone who's applying, not just through Fulbright, but through for a foreign university, generally directly. And one of the things was that it, after reading the whole essay, and I read it very, very quickly because that's sort of the time that, examiners have to go over the statements. There was a negative feel to it. So we corrected everything. I marked on the points, I said, okay, this is what you need to fix. But it needs to have a positive vibe if you're going down that route. So it's a bit tricky, but if you still want to do it, this is what I'll recommend. All right, back on the questions. All right. Would you like to share any template? We talked about a few. My GPA is 3.17. I want to seek admission in PhD education. All right. Is there any opportunity of master studies for wet professionals in Fulbright scholarship? Again, that I'll leave for Noor to answer. Muhammad Ali says, if one has a profile with a mixture of experiences from different fields, education, recruitment, sales, and they want to pursue education for grad school, is it a good thing or a bad or not? It's a good thing. There's no such thing as good or bad, but what I see is you have a lot of relevant experience and you can make a very interesting story. Should they not mention the experience in education? If you have experience, it's great. If you don't, then you need to be a good storyteller and connect. You can always connect the pieces. Diversity of skills is always appreciated, specifically in your actual profession. There is, you'll see a lot of people with very different backgrounds in very different jobs. How much time will this program will take? I don't understand this question, Iman. Maybe you want to clarify that so I can answer. Abdul Ghani says, I've been working as an ELT executive. What is an ELT specifically? I want to seek admission in PhD education. Okay, good luck. Kindly something about the exchange program also. If you're talking about the UGrad program or any other program, Noor can talk about that a little bit. Then we have questions from Farooq. How much of my statement of purpose should be about personal experiences, reflecting my personal life, and how much of it should be about research and internship? So again, they're going to be for Fulbright. They're two separate essays. So I would say in the research objectives, keep it very much on the research study objectives, keep it very much focused on your career ambitions, and on the education, on the personal one, that's where your uniqueness needs to come in. What should be a good start of an authentic SOP? This should be coming from you. How do you want to write that, right? There are many ways to do that. We talked about strategies and we'll talk about strategies, but the specific one, I would want that to come from you. Okay, we'll come back, Harja, to your question. We'll talk about personal anecdotes. This one is super, super interesting. You can start with this actually. Unusual and uncommon experience. For instance, there needs to be a tie of your inspiration, your experience, and your current interest. Always a balance is important. I'll give you an example. So my sister is a Rhodes Scholar. And Rhodes Scholarship is like, I don't know, I hope, Noor, I can mention that. I know it's not a competitive scholarship, but I was just giving an example. So there's usually one Rhodes Scholar that's selected from Pakistan. So you really need things to stand out. So one of the things when, I asked her, how did you, stand out? So I read her essay, I have her essays, and she started her essay. She was a CS computer science background. She started her essay talking about pottery making that she did one summer. And she connected that of how a pot is created in the outskirts of Punjab and then travels all the way to reach, the city, how it's painted, and connected that journey that she had as someone who learned pottery making, and how as a CS major that opened like a creativity side of her, and then connected that to generally like a personality view of how well-rounded she is as an individual, how that influenced her life, what she learned, etc. Now, she did that, but that was just the start. It wasn't the full focus. It was a nice anecdote, nice personal thing that she wrote, but kept a nice balance and then went into the meat. So you can start with something like that as well, but just be mindful you don't get carried away. How are you fit? We already talked about it. These are now specific strategy, guys. Like, keep a note of this. What attracts you to the program? Particular professors, you should name at least two faculty members or courses or research, either of the three. And then include a sentence or two about their research if you're talking about it, but you can only do that if you've done enough research. Now comes the interesting part. Read the paragraph, and I'll read the paragraph out, and you have to tell me, is there anything wrong? So this is just an example of someone who's written an SOP, and I want to get your view on it, and then I'll share my view. The world, and if you've read it, please, answer give me your feedback. The world of computers is growing at an unrecordable rate every day. Computers are the most influential tools in our life. They are our present and future. In my opinion, nothing on the planet can measure the exponential growth and excitement in the computing industry, an industry which I want to be part of, particularly software engineering. Guys, what do you think about this? All right. No need. Very general statement. What's going on? The text coming towards the late. Okay. Nothing new. All right. I think you guys are getting the gist of it. It is very, very generic. There is nothing that stands out. These are facts. And even in terms of facts, this is nothing it didn't catch your attention. And I'm going to go back to the chart to see if anyone has a different view. Did anyone really like this? Did anyone say, oh, okay, I want to read what this person has to say next? Can any other statement be instead of this? Is general, nothing new? I feel if we start with something unique, excellent. You guys are already getting the strategies. Well done. Very long sentences, more focused on exactly, Zainab. Muhammad Ali says general, not customized, not on point. I love the feedback. You guys have all given me excellent feedback on this. Very generic, very factual, very methodical, right? A little bit robotic. I don't see that personal side. Who's the person behind this? What are they passionate about? They're just giving me general facts. All right, fantastic. Another one here, guys. Let's see what your feedback on this is. I'm going to read this one for you. Other courses I'm currently studying are mathematics and accountancy. Maths is also very important to my selected career. Maths is a universal language. It is used by everything and is very involved with computers. I enjoy number work, so an obvious choice for accountancy, although I find this subject less challenging than others, it's still interesting and fun, but it doesn't grip me like computing and is not an immediate career choice, which I want to be a part of, particularly software engineering. All right, let's see what is the verdict on this one. We should never use, in my opinion. You can talk a little bit about that, but there has to be something that is very much connected. But I know where you're coming from, Vakar. Like, I know you don't want it to be very, very sort of strict. Shaisa says here is no, not an impressive statement. That's correct, not very impressive. Manur says it does not resonate with the idea of personal statement. I think some child wrote it. It's a paradoxical statement. The person, we don't know whether it's a him or a her, is contradicting himself. And I also think one thing you guys didn't mention, there's some grammatical errors here as well. And you don't want there to be grammatical error. That is hygiene. So what I mean is like that is absolutely unacceptable. Make sure that you have other people reviewing, make sure there's no errors, no grammatical errors, no language errors, no spelling mistakes. One. Two, then comes the content, the substance. Okay, what I got is, okay, this person loves maths. It is everything, very much involved with computers and wants to do software engineering, but there's nothing, I don't know if they're passionate about it. Like somebody said, I think a computer could have written it, right? It could be very AI generated. It's not, it doesn't have soul. It doesn't have that personalization element that we have been talking about since the start of the session. Absolutely, Laiba, absolutely right. Numbers work. Exactly. Thank you for pointing that out. That was a definite error. I've done masters during the COVID. We didn't learn much because online classes were a new thing and there was a lot of uncertainty also in the field, relatively new in Pakistan. I want to pursue masters in what is I/O programs, Fulbright, as they are the best there. Okay, even if you didn't learn, right? Like there's something you would have learned during your time in COVID. Even if the courses, there has to be some sort of learning. So you have to be a good storyteller. Like I always say, that is something that you experienced, that is something that was there, but how were you able to best use your time? And how were you able to put that to use to your benefit? That is something that you can definitely point out on. And that is my sort of feedback on this. We're going to look at it one last time and then move on the chat and then move on to the next slide, industrial organization. Okay. Will this reduce my chances of securing? No, they don't know what courses you did or what you didn't do. Like it's how you talk about, if you're passionate about it, you can do research, you can do studies on your own, right? So I don't think so. Does the gap year worth it? I don't understand the question, but if you're just generally saying in between, I think there's never a set answer. You need to carve your own path of education, right? You can always get career counselors who can help and guide you. But in terms of whether you want to take a year off, whether you want to work, get some experience, and then go into education or do that slightly, that could vary from person to person. It could vary of what your personal situation right now is, how you want your life in the future. So those are, a few things. I think it would not be um, ideal for someone to dictate that because there are a lot of factors there. All right. Fifth paragraph, another one, you guys. Let's see what you think about this one. Again, this is more on the personal statement side. Let's see if this person was able to grab our attention. My hobbies include football, going out to the cinema, and the odd club or pub, shopping for myself and others, my PC, and the most expensive of all, my girlfriend. I also like to swim. I find it quite relaxing and it is a good experience. I also love to eat out. Going out for meals with friends is unrivaled by almost any social gathering, including clubs and pubs. I love sitting around a table, talking and joking about with friends. While eating, it's something I try and do at least once a month. Friends are very important to me. I try to be the best friend I can. So somebody asked me a question in the chat saying, can we have personal experiences or personal lives? This is as, really authentic personal as it can get. So what do you guys think about this? Were you impressed by this? Well, what's your feedback? I'm going to go on the questions. No hobbies or unrelated stuff. Very casual tone. It's like a text to a friend. If I would have written it, I would talk about how I can see math in my daily life, like how everything can be written in mathematical equations, non-serious attitude. Exactly. So all of these points, it has nothing to do with lacking soul. Absolutely. So there is nothing that is gripping, or there's nothing that is very directly highlighting anything that is very specific here. Exactly. So there needs to be a hobby, something, whether that's community work, whether that's sports, whether that's something that gets the team interested. After this, now I think discussing a coherent and soulful statement as sample will be helpful. Unrelated hobbies, we have to focus on relevant hobbies related to our field, which should be unique. Absolutely. Something that makes you stand out. Seems like a list of exactly, that anyone can do in a city, right? Like I like to eat, I like to hang out with friends, I like to go shopping, but what is that unique element that you have that others don't, right? So again, very generic. Again, an example of something that you absolutely must not do. All right. Now, we've talked a lot about the strategies. So just to summarize the session, since we have the last 5-6 minutes, we talked about strategies, we talked about what we need to do. There needs to be accuracy, there needs to be specificity, you need to be good with the language, do your research, and have more coherent ways of putting your pieces together. Now, one thing that I want to leave you guys with, this is a quote that I absolutely love. I'm obsessed with giving the audience something that they don't see coming. I love that statement. When you're thinking about storytelling, when you're thinking about your narrative, this is absolutely brilliant. And this is what I want you to focus on. Before we end, and I'm going to go on the questions again because we still have 5 more minutes. This is my LinkedIn, and this is my LinkedIn is my name, Ayesha Aleem. You can find me there, add me, and that's where you can reach out to me. And then I also have my email. I'm less responsive on the email, I'll be honest, but I'm more responsive on LinkedIn. On the email,